very complicated topic, and especially for Japanese, the proficiency level we basically require is intermediate high. But the papers that all the students in Japanese wrote in their presentation in Japanese really demonstrate their level of proficiency. Today he is going to present in English since he has already done in Japanese portion. So he will going to talk about the factors of successful Tokyo Disneyland. By the way, he's also going to Japan as an exchange student for next year.
Thank you. All right, well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hayden Wong, and the title of my presentation is Tokyo Disneyland, Factors of Success, or Tokyo Disneylando Seiko no Youin. In my presentation, I will be exploring the Japanese culture and Japanese mind using Tokyo Disneyland as a case study of what effect foreign cultures and foreign influences have on the Japanese society, specifically popular culture in Japan. In my presentation, I'll discuss the following. First, my reasons for choosing this topic and the significance of study, and then introduce my research questions. I'll also provide some historical background information about foreign influences that have shaped the Japanese culture and society of today. I will discuss my survey I created to compare and contrast the views of Japanese and American natives, and finally provide a list of references used for my presentation. One of my reasons for choosing this topic is because of my experience with the Magic Kingdom. It was a fantasy land, where you could see your favorite Disney characters, have your picture taken with Mickey Mouse. So it was also the first amusement park that I had been to as a kid, and since then it's been a good memory for me. It's my familiarity and childhood nostalgia with Disneyland and my interest in the Japanese culture that has led me to this topic. I was interested in what makes Disneyland so popular with the Japanese despite its origination in the United States. Tokyo Disneyland was the first Disney park to be built internationally, but since its construction it has become one of the most successful theme parks in the world and one of the most visited theme parks in Japan. Why is the American symbol of the happiest place on earth so popular with the Japanese? These are some of the issues I plan to discuss during my presentation, as well as the following research questions. So these are my research questions. How have the Japanese been able to successfully modify foreign objects to suit the Japanese taste? Why do the Japanese have a fascination with foreign popular culture? And why has Disneyland in Japan endured while the one in Paris failed? So now I discuss some of the other foreign influences that have shaped the Japanese culture and society today. Prior to the 1850s, there was limited importation of foreign ideas into Japan, but after the Treaty of Kanagawa, Japan's ports were open to foreign trade, and since then the Japanese have been using their ideas of other cultures to their advantage. By learning about these foreign ideas and further developing them, the Japanese have benefited from their willingness to embrace other cultures. The Japanese have utilized ideas from many different countries, including China, the United States, Holland, Portugal, Germany, and France. So I'll briefly discuss the first three countries. For example, the Japanese written scripture was adapted from Chinese writing style. The Japanese used the Chinese characters for writing. However, in order for the Japanese to express their own language using the Chinese style, they began to use hiragana in addition to the Chinese characters. Here's some samples of Chinese and Japanese writing styles. The picture on the left is written in Chinese, and then on the right is Japanese. So these are the hiragana and katakana charts, which comprise the basis of the Japanese written language, along with numerous complex kanji characters. Katakana, on the right-hand side, was developed in order to write foreign words in Japanese, such as pan, or bread, which was adopted from the Portuguese language. Today, the use of katakana can be easily found throughout Japan. It's used to write all foreign words and names in Japanese. So the Dutch also had a significant effect on the Japanese culture and society. With the introduction of the telescopic lens, the Japanese have been able to adapt and refine the use of the lens and integrate them into some of the most technologically advanced products in the world today. The electronic devices that Japan produces today are by far the most advanced and superior in the world. Another influence of the Dutch was the medical and science fields, which Lisa had spoke about earlier. Detailed Dutch illustrations of the human anatomy enabled the Japanese to study the muscle and bone structures of humans more effectively. Another example of the way Japanese have been able to incorporate foreign influences into their own society is the introduction of bread into Japan. A country most notably known for, recognized for eating rice, the Japanese have combined the lessons learned from the Portuguese and their own taste to create bread products that may seem unfamiliar to most people. To suit the Japanese taste, many of the breads in Japan contain sweet fillings such as creams, jams, and even sweet red beans or azuki. The Japanese have gotten so good at creating new breads that they even won the Coupe du Monde de la Boulangerie, or the World Cup of Baking, in 2002. Many foreign businesses have also found their way into the Japanese culture. Denny's and McDonald's can be found in Japan, as well as other American businesses. And the influences of popular culture can be easily seen throughout Japan. 7-Eleven and Coca-Cola are some more examples of the popularity and success of American businesses in Japan. While they might seem familiar to people not of Japanese descent, if you go inside, it still is pretty exotic, the stuff that they have. So now on to research question 1, which was, how have the Japanese been able to successfully modify foreign objects to suit the Japanese taste? Edwin Reischauer, a former ambassador in Japan and a Harvard University professor, states that the Japanese also developed a clear awareness of the distinction between borrowed and native elements in their culture, thus achieving an early realization of the value of learning from other cultures. With this ability to distinguish the difference between foreign and domestic objects, the Japanese can effectively differentiate their identity from the West in a way that reinforces their cultural uniqueness. Because of their ability to recognize the differences of the native and borrowed elements, they've been able to choose and implement foreign influences which best suit their specific needs. So living within a homogeneous society, it might be easier for the Japanese to separate foreign concepts from indigenous ones. One example is the conscious separation of the foreign indigenous objects is the use of the Katakana to write the foreign words in Japanese, such as McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and Disneyland. Another reason that the Japanese have been so successful in changing foreign influences to suit the Japanese taste is their unwillingness to settle for anything but the best. Even with the introduction of new techniques, the Japanese will continually refine and perfect these techniques. As W. Scott Morton writes, the Japanese are as a people are conscious of their past and proud of it. At the same time, they want the latest the surrounding world has to offer, the latest technology, the latest philosophy, and the latest fad. They have an insatiable curiosity about how things work, whether it's a musket, a steamboat, an electron, or an enzyme. Find out and do it better. So this determination to produce better goods and products has enabled the Japanese to surpass other countries in the development of technology. Research question 2 examines why the Japanese have a fascination with foreign popular culture. For this question, I created a survey for both Japanese and Americans to compare and contrast the similarities and differences between the cultures. So out of the Japanese respondents that replied, all were between the age of 20 and 30. 3 of them had visited the United States and 1 had not. Of the American audience, the respondents ranged from age 20 to 40. 1 had visited Japan and 5 had not. So the first question I asked was for respondents to write the top 5 words or phrases that they associated with this picture, Mickey Mouse. It was interesting that, so I've listed the Japanese on the left and American responses on the right for the research questions. And so even though Disneyland originated in the United States, all of the Japanese participants in the survey recognized Mickey Mouse, and 1 even said it was the national idol. So that's pretty interesting. I found it interesting that the American participants associated Mickey Mouse with many of the other Disney characters, such as Minnie, Goofy, Donald, and Pluto, whereas Japanese participants associated Mickey with feelings of peace, laughter, happiness, popularity, and fame. However, American participants also focus on the memorable experiences that Mickey evoked in their minds when they thought of it. And this is possibly a factor of nostalgia for the happiest place on earth, stemming from childhood experiences of visiting Disneyland. So I don't know if you can tell which park that these characters belong to, but that's an example of the characters. For the second survey question, I asked, do you like Disney characters and why? I received mixed results from the Japanese participants. Two liked the Disney characters for their charm and cuteness, and one even stated they like Alice because of her fluffy skirt and fluffy long hair. Quite possibly because blonde hair and blue eyes is so different from what the Japanese are used to seeing. One of them answered that they like Snoopy more than, and thought the Disney characters, one liked Snoopy more than Mickey Mouse, and another one thought Disney characters weren't cute at all. For the American respondents, everyone liked the Disney characters because it reminded them of their childhood and carefree times. So this seemed to be a pattern that was progressing. The general appeal of Disney characters for the American participants was that they're funny, cute, and make them laugh. So survey question 3 dealt with the fascination of Disneyland, specifically what was so intriguing about Disneyland. And what was interesting in these responses was the fact that both Japanese and Americans recognized Disneyland as a place one can go to forget reality, enjoy themselves in a dream world of perfection, as one Japanese participant stated. Or a fantasy world and an escape from reality, as an American responded. It was fascinating that Disneyland is practically considered a utopian paradise by both Japanese and American participants that took the survey. It was also noted that the beautiful parades and general atmosphere of Disneyland created this surreal experience of not anything like the real world, like reality. So one participant said that it was like you were living inside of a movie or picture book. They also liked the fact that there were adult-sized water fountains next to smaller ones for children, so that both parents and children could share the experience of being at the magic experience. So for my next question, I asked, what does Disneyland mean to you? And it was interesting to see that the Japanese thought of Disneyland as pure entertainment and a place to take girls. But Americans revered Disney as an escape from the drudgery of work and happiness, magic, fulfillment of wishes, and great childhood memories, as well as a family place for everyone. So one American respondent said that it reminded her of her childhood memories, but now that she's older, she thinks of the corporate monster pushing out the last old Japanese American farmers in Anaheim, bad pay for employees, as well as a one-sided historical inaccuracy of the movies that Disney creates. So I guess for some, this spell of Disney has worn off, but for the most part, Disneyland is still the place to go for entertainment. So this is survey question number 5, and I asked whether or not Japanese and Americans were interested in the popular culture of America and Japan, respectively. So the Japanese respondents replied that that Western music and movies, fashion, cosmetics, and language and people fascinated them. But the American participants responded also had the same fascination for the Japanese movies, entertainment, including television shows, anime, J-pop, and then they also liked sports and technology. From these results, I think the entertainment of another country, is pretty fascinating for most people because it's something unique and dissimilar to what they're used to, something that can't be found in their own culture. I think most people are fascinated by other cultures, but can appreciate popular culture entertainment more easily than other aspects of foreign cultures. For my last survey question, I asked the Japanese participants whether or not they agreed or disagreed with the following statement, that the Japanese are extremely interested in foreign products, especially things from America. All agreed, but they also mentioned that they were fascinated with anything that was a foreign product, not necessarily American products. One of the participants thought there was an attraction to foreign goods because the products were famous brand names, they were reliable or expensive. Even one American participant brought up the fact that brand name products attract the Japanese. She stated, yes, the Japanese have a love affair for anything designed. Popularity of Louis Vuitton, Coach, Prada, Gucci, etc. is crazy, especially when you think about the cost of living in Japan and what these people do to obtain such expensive goods. Quite possibly the perception of certain products being popular, famous, brand name or expensive adds to the appeal of acquiring these products. But what makes a specific brand name popular among people? Why is one brand name more desirable than others? Is it mainly a status symbol of owning the most expensive brand name product, or is it the appeal of a certain item due to its construction, its durability, and reliability? So let's see. So through my survey, I discovered the Japanese were typically fascinated with foreign popular culture products and also have an attraction with anything originating outside of Japan. In response to my second survey research question of why the Japanese are fascinated with foreign popular cultures, I think the fascination stems from foreign products being unavailable to the Japanese and the fact that it's something different and unusual than what they're used to. So Tokyo Disneyland is just one example of the popularity and fascination the Japanese have with ideas that come from other countries. So even though there are hundreds of other theme parks in Japan, Tokyo Disneyland is by far the most visited and most popular in the country. And this leads me to research question 3, which is, why has Disneyland in Japan endured while the one in Paris failed? I know the two castles in each Disneyland theme park, there's a main castle. The one on the left is the Tokyo Disneyland castle based off of Cinderella's castle. They decided to use that instead of the original one from Anaheim because to them it sort of symbolized the rags to riches story of coming from nothing and then their country gaining so much power and prestige. So one possible explanation of why Disneyland has been such a success in Japan and not in France may be the familiarity that the Japanese have of the Disney concept and Disney characters. In Japan, previous exposure to Disney characters and Disney culture through television or visiting the actual Disneyland in Anaheim might have left a lasting impression on the Japanese. So despite being foreign and exotic concept, the popularity of Tokyo Disneyland suggests that the Japanese have had some kind of previous exposure to Disney themes and have popularized the Disney themes into their culture. So Mary Yoko Brandon states that much of the exotica of Disneyland is already familiar to the Japanese. Disney movies and paraphernalia have been part of the Japanese experience since the late 1940s. So nearly a month after first opening on April 15th, 1983, over a million guests had already visited Tokyo Disneyland within a month. So Aviad E. Raz states that many middle-aged Japanese, that's the top one, say they want to take their children to Tokyo Disneyland because of 20 years ago they loved the popular Mickey Mouse Club television show. He also states that our generation probably received the biggest Disney influence because of the popular TV show. We later became parents when Tokyo Disneyland opened, so naturally we want to take our children to Tokyo Disneyland. As Roz illustrates, many of the middle-aged Japanese, most with families of their own now, want to share this experience of Disney with their children. This is possibly another factor that has led to the immense popularity of Disneyland in Japan. So yet another explanation of why Disneyland has been more successful and more popular in Japan, but not France, may be the failure of the Disney company to acknowledge the cultural differences between Americans and foreign markets. An additional reason is the fact that Disney does not own Tokyo Disneyland, but Tokyo Disneyland is owned and operated by the Oriental Land Company, which is a Japanese company. The Oriental Land Company, or the OLC, was licensed by Disney in return for 10% of admissions earnings and 5% of food and souvenir sales. At the same time Tokyo Disneyland was being constructed, the Epcot Center in Florida was also being built. So there was a lot of money tied up with this other park that Disney didn't want to really deal with that. And since Disneyland in Tokyo was the first international park, they decided to license the Oriental Land Company to be in charge of Tokyo Disneyland. So even though the Disney company had the opportunity to see what things worked or didn't work in the first international park, there were still numerous cultural details overlooked when planning Paris Disneyland. Due to the success of Disneyland, the Disney company wanted to retain the rights and license of Paris Disneyland in hopes that their second international park would also be a major success. However, their oversight in understanding the French culture when planning Paris Disneyland was one of their downfalls. They assumed that the French would only eat a light breakfast of croissants and coffee in the hotels, but when they discovered that the French mostly preferred full sit-down breakfast, they weren't prepared to handle the demand, and the long lines promoted complaints by the guests. Another misconception of the French culture surfaced when naming their second international park. As Michael Eisner states in his autobiography, as Americans we had believed that the word Euro in front of Disney was glamorous and exciting. However, for Europeans it turned out to be a term they associate with business, currency, and commerce. So these are some of the factors that possibly led to the success of Disneyland in Tokyo and the near failure of Disneyland in Paris. So this is a list of all the Disney parks built to date. The first one is the original Anaheim Park, built in July 17th of 1955. The fourth park is Tokyo Disneyland. That was the first international park, April 15th, 1983. Their eighth park that there is under construction right now is going to be the third international Disney park and they plan to open it in Hong Kong. So we'll see what happens with that one. So in conclusion, the ingenuity of the Japanese people to use foreign ideas and concepts to their advantage has benefited their society throughout the years. With the ability to distinguish between foreign and domestic products, the Japanese can effectively differentiate their identity in the West to reinforce the sense of their cultural uniqueness. Tokyo Disneyland is just one example of the immense fascination Japanese have with popular cultures and popular cultures of foreign countries. So this is a list of my resources, and then just like to thank Professor Saito Abbott and Professor Tom Abbott for their help throughout the years and their patience. And also our exchange students here, which helped me out greatly with my translations, my peers and colleagues who also helped me in this project, and everyone else that has helped me throughout the years. So that's pretty much it.
Great job.